This is Curley Lawson, LICSW, of viewer discretion. I am not offering clinical guidance in this podcast. So I'm not advising, I'm not diagnosing, I'm not giving any clinical guidance at all. Just is purely educational. The responsibility of the relationship is a shared responsibility. It is not one person's job to maintain a relationship. It is everyone involved in a relationship that is shared. And yep, we are busy, but if we factored out all the doom scrolling and Netflix and video game, and well, yeah, we're busy, but how busy are we really? And
Right.
can we make time? Can we find time for something that we say is important?
Hey guys, welcome back to Win the Night. Here again for episode 5 now, believe it or not, with Air Force veteran and trauma therapist Curley Lawson. Welcome back.
It is great to be back. Thank you for welcoming me back. Yeah, episode 5. This has been amazing. It really has.
So what a ride. And one of the things that always amazes me about these conversations, and something we touched on just before we started recording, is the ebbs and flows of these hour-long conversations that we talk about life, the things that happened over the course of many years, and then condense that down to hour-long conversations. You really do get to see the ebb and flow of life, because you kind of hit the fast forward button on the life events, and then you really see how much life comes up and it comes down, and in some ways too, it does seem almost like a symphony, what are they called?
Crescendo.
Yeah, right. Like what are those that
Obstacles. Yeah.
no, the directors, or what are they called?
The conductor. Yeah.
The conductors, right?
Yeah.
It's like you kind of see life being conducted, and you're the music, kind of like doing that up and down motion. And so I do think that in some ways it is kind of like that, where that is kind of the beautiful part about it, is it's almost intentional, and there's such greatness in the sadness, and such greatness in the happiness, and I think that combined is what makes it such a great experience. But that was our little bit of a conversation before we jumped on here, and we discussed too what it's, we might be on here, people watching, and go, wow, like, look at these two guys, they seem to have it all figured out. And I was just telling you, like, my furnace just went out over the weekend, and so I have to deal with a cold, semi-heated with a tiny little space heater room, and so those are things that happen in the background, and we have still things to do, and so life goes on, but we do definitely have real life problems.
Yeah. And real life is occurring for all of us, and it is ebbs and flows and ups and downs. And recently I had to have one of my dogs put down, and it was just devastating. And anyone that's ever lost a pet, pet grief is this very real thing. And one thing that I wanted to really touch on just for a moment, particularly in the vet population, a lot of vets have service animals, and so if a service animal has to be put down, there not only is it the loss of this animal, but now it's also the loss of the skill, or that this animal brought to the vet, brought to this vet, and so that magnifies that loss. And so life is going on. I was just, we were like talking beforehand. It's like, man, like, you guys really got lives figured out. And I'm like, man, sometimes I'm just barely hanging on like everybody else. And
Wow.
but that's real. I think it's so healthy that everyone understand that, basically we're all just trying to do the best we can with what we have. And something I address in therapy very often is what happens when people compare like their insides to other people's outsides. It looks like you have everything going on. You looks like you have everything,
Right.
And then someone will compare whatever's going on in their life and what they're feeling to what they see in others, and make some assumptions. So
Yeah, there real life goes on, and I also do want to say I don't think we got to really talk too much about that about your dog. I'm really sorry that yeah that you had to put him down, but yeah, that's not a fun thing to have to experience, and especially not with one that is such a good friend.
yeah, well, she gave me 12 years of joy, and and I made that ending for her as comfortable and easy as possible. And I was talking with the vet, right before that process started, and the vet asked me how I was doing, and I said, you know what? What I did with her was I let her discover the joy of chocolate chip cookies. So
Mm.
right up to the very end, I mean, I made sure she had a great time, and the absence is felt. I mean, so it's that that too is part of the deal, for all of us. I mean, if I never wanted to experience pain, I'd probably never experience joy. So
Well,
is
yeah.
is the pain of losing my dog relative, compared to the joy of having my dog? I'll take the joy of having the dog every single time. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate you.
yes, and that's another important thing, and why I think that there's beauty in sadness, and and I like that that's something that I used to be really afraid of is
Yeah.
the sad part of life,
Mhm.
the letting go, and because then we want to stay in the have them forever,
Right.
but if we don't have to let them go at some point, we would have never really we lose the appreciation of them,
Yeah.
the beauty of the friendship, having had them, and having had an opportunity to call them your friend or call them
Right.
your family member or your parents or what have you. So
Mhm.
I do think that the two are necessary to really experience the life to its full potential, and in that loss, I hope that there's also great happiness in the experience that you had.
Well, but thanks, man. And you just said something that I was thinking. Uh, you said something that people that know me, I've heard me say so many times. Sometimes love is letting go. And and so that's healthy love. I mean, it is that recognition of time, of letting go, and that will show up in our lives many, many times. So but it is part of the deal. I mean, that also is it's like if we read the fine print of life, oh, sometimes love is letting go. And if we have a healthy understanding of that, it doesn't mean that we don't experience pain, we don't experience grief. It doesn't mean that we don't experience that loss. It really means for me that we get to experience the love.
Mhm.
And I one of the things that I emphasize about losing like people, and something that I learned very early. You were talking about, a couple episodes ago, we talked about when I worked at a nursing home. Every This is something that I at this point in my life I really understand. When someone dies, every argument with that person is over. Every fight with that person is over.
Yeah.
And if those fights and arguments don't matter in depth, how much should they matter in life? And so I try to like that is something personally that I try to keep front and center because, everyone says life's too short. Man, we have no idea really how short life is. So I don't want to waste I don't have a second to waste on something that doesn't just
Mm.
really make a second. And if that person died, would this thing be a big deal anymore? No, then I'm not gonna let it be a big deal in life. So that
Yeah, I
unburdens me.
yeah, and I think that um and hopefully that there's the situation in which both sides can see it in a way of like, let's what do we do to have a healthy relationship?
Yeah.
Because I do think too that part is necessary to be able to make the relationship a
Mhm.
healthy one.
Yep. And so the real challenge about healthy relationships is well, not say, well, the real challenge, but a
Right.
challenge to healthy relationships is we don't all get to that point at the same time. Man, it would be so wonderful if we did. If we like, if everyone you knew had that realization at the exact same moment, that'd be amazing. That'd be wonderful. Nope, there's gonna be so I ain't changing, I ain't moving there. So there's resistance or there's fear or whatever. Well, something I explore and explain with people is like I won't do I won't do less because others can't do more. I and I'm going to keep moving forward and I want to be healthy in every relationship. And sometimes we're modeling, sometimes we're showing, man, it's okay to be out front. It's okay to be in this space, but I would love it. Oh my gosh. You're thinking if everyone I knew got to that point at the same time, that makes my life so much easier. And I also want to really add, I'm not saying I'm the one that has it all figured out. Like,
Mm.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I'm the one. It's like that guy thinks he has it all figured out. No, that's not it. I know I still have more. I know that I still have more growth ahead of me. And so I'm embracing that growth. I am looking for that growth. What I'm not going to do, what I'm not willing to do at this point in my life is refuse to grow. And in some relationships that I've had with people, I've expressed I'm fighting for change and they are fighting change. And that creates this real tension that, you know, it's almost like a tug of war. If you and I were going in the same direction and I got one end of the rope and you got one end of the rope, there's no tension on the rope. We're going in the same direction. But if
Right.
one of us is going in the opposite direction, now there's tension on the rope. And something I explain to people, and this is an example that I use in therapy, is when I recognize I'm in a tug of war, I immediately let go of the rope. Because you know how you win a tug of war?
Mm.
You win by going backwards. I don't want to go backwards.
Oh, wow. Wait a second. Say that one again. That was a good one.
Yeah. So the goal of tug of war, you got two people are opposing teams, like pulling as hard as they can, and you win in a tug of war by going backwards. The victor is the person or the team that goes backwards the furthest. For me, that is not a great model of life. So if I'm in a tug of war, I let go of the rope, turn around, and then I can go forward. And we have these emotional tug of wars. We've all found ourselves in this in a battle with someone about something that we felt was important.
Right.
And to recognize that, oh man, this is a tug of war moment. Like what's really happening? And it's not necessarily about winning. And that for me in that moment, I recognize it's more about understanding, like what is happening right now. When I'm doing couples therapy, I explain the argument is never about the toothpaste and it is never
Right.
about the dishwasher.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it is somebody's value system or something like that. So being able to, really figure that out, like what are you actually even fighting about? Not this surface level thing, but that deeper thing, and trying to pull someone. And sometimes it's about something, that they learn from, grandma or grandpa or pastor or whatever. If you're three and I say, you never, ever, ever under any circumstances do this, and I'm a powerful person in your life, well, then you never, ever, ever under any circumstances do that.
Right.
And if you got family, friends, significant others trying to get you to do that thing, you're not going to do it. You're not going to be happy and you're going to be in a tug of war. So it is understanding, okay, what's actually happening in this moment? Being able to let go of the rope. Okay, am I being pulled in a direction I want to go? Am I trying to pull someone else in a direction they don't want to go? And why are we headed in different directions anyway? It just frees up. It has just freed up my life so much. You certainly seen two people in a parking lot arguing over a parking space or something like that. You're a jerk. You're a jerk. That happens to me. I go, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry about that. Whether I believe I was wrong or not,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm free and I'm clear and I'm gone and I'm not going to spend an hour of my life arguing about a parking spot.
That brings up a question that I have for you. I think we were talking about before we started recording about looking into what healthy what a healthy relationship might look like.
Mhm.
And so then I'm curious because you had mentioned that not everybody's going to be coming to realizations of changes they need to make at the same time. And so then I'm curious, is there a point in which your assessment or you come to a conclusion of um, if you spend time with somebody that uh, causes you harm intentionally or unintentionally, is there a point in which um, to love of yourself is to walk away? Do you see it that way?
Oh, absolutely. Alright, so, say you're walking and you and I, we go to we go to lunch, we talk about the podcast, we've had a great experience, and we're, heading out to the, parking lot, we get in our cars, and we're gonna go drive away and go do whatever's next on our agenda. And I accidentally hit you with my car backing up.
Right.
You're injured. Oh my gosh, so sorry. Call 911. You're going to be okay. Hospital. Totally an accident. Compare that to I intentionally hit you with my car. You're just as injured.
Right.
And I go, yep. I really didn't care about lunch, so I hit you with my car. So once you've been accidentally injured, and others you've been intentionally injured. Uh, in that scenario, uh, which Curly are you going to continue a relationship with? The one that accidentally injured you, or the one that intentionally injured you?
Well, hopefully, if that wasn't rhetorical, hopefully you'd pick the one that doesn't do it intentionally.
Yes, and now you will be on alert for any lunch meeting that we have in the future. Yes, if we take a look at people that are intentionally injuring us, intentionally harming us, it is self-preservation. And there are people, there can be some diagnostic criteria. There's some things that the therapists that are listening to this have had a client where they just simply said, I have one word of advice for you: run. And because there are some people that are diagnostically, we know they will harm others, and then they're not going to be necessarily fixed. They don't feel remorse or guilt about it. In fact, they even feel entitled to do that harm to others. So taking care of yourself is, that is literally our number one priority.
Yeah.
And helping people understand that they're not giving up, they're not failing, they're not abandoning someone that is intentionally harming them. They're placing themselves in a safe place. Now, if this person is willing to do the work and understand, oh my gosh, these actions are harmful, and to take accountability and become better, all right, well, that relationship, that there might be some hope of saving that relationship. But for the people that have no interest in changing, it's like that's almost a prison sentence. I sentence you to be with this person that at any given time is going to cause you harm. And one thing that we have, a lot of therapists will use something that's called the power and control wheel. And I like it because it's a very simple instrument that, the client can read, that describes different types of harm and control. So it's not me saying this, it's them recognizing, oh, well, they control the finances. Oh, they control who I can see. They control where I go. They make me responsible for their feelings. And I tell people that is a huge red flag. If someone says, if you know how I get when you do whatever.
Right.
No, you are an adult and you are responsible for your own emotions. So if someone is making you responsible for their responses and emotions, that's control and then manipulation. When people, if anyone's ever talked about walking on eggshells, oh, you know how they get, or can't be that.
Right.
That is a degree of control and manipulation of another person. And it is profoundly harmful to anyone's, psychological health.
I think the reason particularly why I asked this, I won't say that a lot of people go through this because I don't know, but speaking from experience, what can be difficult, I think, at least in my situation, and I'm sure people could relate, is that uh, there can be knowledge that the person doesn't mean to harm, but also isn't making the steps to make the change. They acknowledge there's a problem,
Right.
and the truth is too uncomfortable to face because it's facing themselves. And I think that that's some of the scariest things you could do. I know from experience for me, because at some point, for I can't claim to want to do things differently and then follow the path of not acknowledging my limits and my faults, and looking at myself honestly and saying, well, why, asking myself that genuine question, where is this coming from? Because I think that the love of self, uh the lack of a love of self, has at least generationally done a ton of damage to my family members.
Yep.
Is the feeling of not feeling loved by either parents or siblings or a mix, and passing that lack of love down to their children. And so when you don't have a love of self, you prioritize, you look for other people to give you something
Yeah.
that you have to give yourself, and it can be only found from within, and that's love of self. Nobody can make you love yourself, and that's, I think, um the lesson in that. But then the challenge is, that person isn't an evil person and isn't doing it with the intention to harm. And but these are both things, and we talked about, like, life is not black and white, it is not
Right.
one way or another, and it can also be unhealthy if they do not take the steps to face the discomfort of, I don't love myself, and why.
Right. Well, there is a lot to unpack in all
Yeah,
that.
yes, yes.
And but so really, as a therapist, I'm hearing you talking about, the differences between abuse and neglect. Like abuse are things that are done to you. Neglect are things that you don't receive, like love. I mean, like I work with so many people that were like, hey, I grew up in an upper middle class household, we had food, had clothing, all the stuff, things, nobody loved me. So from the outside, well, that looks wonderful. And anyone walking by, on the inside, you got a kid that doesn't feel loved. And for anyone that is endured physical abuse, they might, oh my God, I would have traded with you in a heartbeat. And I get like those comparisons, but they're harmful differently.
Right.
And so what we try to do, and earlier you and I were talking about expectations and reality of
Right.
therapy.
Yeah.
Someone comes to therapy and they have an expectation. Um, and that expectation could be like anything. You're going to fix me is a very common expectation that people have of therapy. I'm going to walk in, I'm going to sit down with this person, they're going to say some things, and they're going to do something, and that fixes me. And it's like, oh no, you confuse me with a wizard. You are going to do the thing. And
Yes.
like recognizing a problem. So first off, recognizing a problem. And I like really, use a analogy, metaphor that is very obvious to people. So if you walk up to your car, I'm not going to talk about car stuff all day, but if you walk up to your car and then you have a flat tire, well, you have a problem. If you walk out to your car and you have a flat tire, you recognize, oh, I have a flat tire. You recognize the problem. Are you done? Is that enough?
Right.
Well, I can't drive this car. This car has a flat tire. I recognize this car has a flat tire. Problem recognition. Josh gets a gold star. Is that enough?
Right.
And for some people, yep, this car will never move again because it has a flat tire. For some people, they might accept that. If you want to use your car and continue to lead your life, now you require some action. There's some intervention. And it's you changing a tire or someone changing a tire for you, or, something else has to happen in order to, get the car completely operable again. There has to be some type of intervention, and that intervention requires some degree of actual work. Someone has to do something in order to change the tire. So in therapy, like people will come in and they'll recognize that there's a problem, relationship problem, personal problem. They'll like, I'm depressed, like, and I get this a lot. Well, I'm depressed. And one of the things that I'll ask clients about, anything is like, well, what are you willing to do about it?
Mm.
And if they go nothing, it's like, well, okay, well, like, you can live with depression if you want to, but if you're not willing to do something, I don't see how the problem gets better. Just like if you had a flat tire and said, hey, Josh, you got a flat tire. What are you willing to do about it?
Mm.
Nothing. Okay, well, you do have a flat tire. And you know what happens? Everyone else gets in their car and they go. And you sit there with a flat tire. And you have every right to sit there with a flat tire. And that is an approach that many people take to mental health. They may recognize a problem or the problem is brought to their attention and they go, yeah, okay, well, that problem exists and I'm going to live with it. And unless it is, harmful to others and themselves in a manner that requires, some other outside intervention, well, they have every right to do that. So that becomes like a challenge. But what if people are coming and going? You have a flat tire and now you're angry because other people are coming and going. And you're just standing there with a flat tire. And maybe you get in the car, sit in the car because, but other people are coming and going and you're angry and frustrated that others are coming and going and you're not. And that anger builds and that frustration builds. But it still boils down to, well, what are you willing to do about it? And, so I try to, really find things that make sense to people. If you've ever been in a house in the winter, it's very cold. Most people, they'll turn up the thermostat. Why did they turn up the thermostat? They were cold. They were so uncomfortable that they went to a thermostat, pushed a button,
Right.
turned it or something. And then I point out, and when you adjusted the thermostat, that the house instantly get warm. You turn it up from, 64 to 74. Was it instantly 74 degrees? And everyone says no. And I go, what happened? And I go, well, it took time. Oh, so even when we start with the interventions, it can take time. There's very few things in therapy that are kind of like this instant, do this.
Right.
Start recognize a problem, do the intervention, and it will take some time to get the results of that intervention. So preparing people for that, like the expectation versus reality. I think Curley may have talked about how therapy is portrayed in TV and movies, which if anyone's never been in therapy, it is not like TV and movies. Like that is not.
If Hollywood was ever accurate about any of their portrayals of how life works, I think we would all be pretty in pretty good condition.
I'd be much happier. I would be so much happier. But it's not. But the reality is, like, there are going to be like some type of intervention or interventions. There might be multiple interventions that are needed to address not only that problem, but maybe even other problems that the person has. And that too can be a challenge. And I know something we plan on talking about today is, well, what should the therapist do? What should the client do? Like, what works? What's the thing that works? And that is actually why, people go to therapy, is for whatever the thing is, the thing that works, those clinical interventions. And it's important to have some understanding of that.
I think too, before we jump into that, one of the things that when we talk about expectations versus reality, I tell this to anybody that I ask, particularly therapists or people who've gone to therapy, that my expectation going into therapy, as you said, was that yes, to some degree, like you're going to fix me, but it was a more so of, you're going to tell me you have insight that I don't have, and so you're going to feed me knowledge about what I don't know yet, and then once I know, I'm going to be able to figure out the problem. And so that was the original thought process of that. You're going to give me like answers to questions that I don't have an answer to yet. And you're going to have a perspective that I don't have, which is partially true, but uh, but that the perspective that you're looking at it from, you're going to give me you already see the answer, and that was the expectation, was that you're from your vantage point, you will already have seen the answer, and you're just going to feed it to me, and then I'm going to produce the results. That was my expectation.
Okay.
And so the reality for me is that not only was I my therapist said something similar to what you said, which is, "Oh no, I am not going to give you the answer. You are." And that was the like the huh? I don't really I don't follow. I'm here because I don't know. And that's the surprise. That was the kind of like the I don't get how that's supposed to happen, because what I didn't know is what I'm going to be doing in therapy is going through exercises that help me uh, to help me access things that I haven't otherwise been able to access about me, within myself.
Right.
And so that was where we went into, and I think this is a good uh, transition into the next topic, is uh, EMDR was something that
Mm.
was very helpful in accessing things that they otherwise wouldn't haven't been able to access emotions too, because part of the problem for me anyway was that um I could tell you the story of what happened, but you don't feel anything.
Right.
You're not going to get any sense of a feeling from me. It's going to be very numb. And that was the thing that my therapist honed in on, was that, okay, well, how did you feel in those moments? And not being able to feel it. I could say it to you, but I couldn't
Right.
feel it. And that was the thing that was holding me back, was that if I cannot feel the sadness in the stories in which I was hurt, then I can't do the healing, because part of the healing is the letting go, is the being
Yeah.
able to bring the emotions forward, acknowledge them for what they are, and feel them, so that it's in some sense exposure therapy,
Yeah.
to expose yourself to the sadness, so that you can you will feel your way through the healing. And that's what I learned. So the expectation was, you're going to give me answers, which is very like logical. And part of the problem was that I was intellectualizing my
Mhm.
problems, and that was inherently what was holding me back.
That hurt him. So nicely summarized, so part of me is like, man, you know what? If you're in my class right now, dude, you'd be rocking a solid A with that answer.
Oh,
So this is something like you just touched on something that is so important. It is the conceptualization of the problem is often very logical. Like it's the what happened, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And what we don't often express, and it's something that I tell people all the time. And if just talking about the problem, if what happened, what happened, if that w- if that healed us, most vets will be fine. Most vets can tell you the story, and we'll tell the story over and over. What they don't say is the emotional component, what I felt in that moment. And we might even recognize what they felt. Another challenge is most people aren't very aware of their emotions. If we ask people to quickly name as many emotions as you can, most people will give like 5 to 7 out of like, 85 or 88 or something like that. So we can't really, how do you express the emotion that you can't even define, that you don't know, like you so when s- if I tell someone, and I had to put my dog down and I experienced, grief, loss, but also just like regret, could I have done more, should I have done more, remorse, I experienced, joy, I mean, like, okay, so now this is a much more um, complete understanding of what that emotional experience, like is for me. So, as an EMDR, practitioner, one of the things that I really like about EMDR, and it's something that I tell my client, it helps them get to a point that they can experience and express that emotional component of that trauma or distressful circumstance that they've gone through in a way that was safe. Another reason people don't like to experience their emotions is that we've been taught that, experiencing some emotions are unsafe for us. But there's no such thing as an unsafe emotion at all. I mean, there may be some unsafe actions or reactions
Right.
to emotions, but there's no such thing as an unsafe emotion. So, we've been taught to be fearful of experiencing emotions, or even have shame about, particularly for
Right.
men, that have shame about experiencing our emotions. And most of the people listening to this have probably heard at some point in their life as a child, they're crying, and an adult says, "Well, I'll give you something to cry about." And like, I already have, so I'm literally crying right now. I
Right.
already have something to cry about. But we're being taught to not express emotion. When children are crying, they are expressing emotion. You make the child stop crying, you're shutting that emotional expression down. So we are taught not to express emotion. And I do understand, particularly, in the military, in the midst of operation, we cannot have people be overly emotional because that can actually, degrade our capacity to complete the mission. So we are taught, shut that down, and we'll deal with it later. And I get that.
Yep.
That's and it's something I express to people all the time. That's mission effective. That's not healthy. So we trade healthy for mission effectiveness. And,
Yes.
and I get it. Like, that's the deal. We're not really good at undoing that, particularly like on our way out of the door. Oh man, we turned on all that emission effective circuitry. Let's turn that off and turn on all this emotional healthy
Right.
circuitry. Uh, we're not good at that. So people leave embracing mission effectiveness in a manner that the rest of our lives typically don't require that level of life or death mission effectiveness. So we find ourselves with these emotional shutdowns. So addressing all of that is really challenging. Uh, how we go about doing it? What are effective ways to do that? EMDR, when I'm uh, practicing EMDR with someone, I try to make it, first off, make sure they know it's going to be safe, because you're throwing a lot of, like, we live in therapists, we love acronyms. If we can take something, turn it into an acronym. So we have this acronym salad of things we're going to do. So I explain the theory of EMDR, and how that was devised, and what the expected outcome is going to be, but I also relate it to something that most people get: a roller coaster. I go, here's what's happening. You're on a roller coaster, you put down a harness, you buckle up, you do whatever, and you are harnessed and belted into this roller coaster, and it goes off. And it's scary. It's a drop, and it spins, and you're upside down and all these things, but you are safe the entire time. I don't know, EMDR is going to be, you know, emotionally like that. You'll be safe the entire time. I have them look around my office like, we're not leaving this office. You're going to be in here safe the entire time. You're going to be on this emotional roller coaster ride. And at the end of this roller coaster ride, just like with an actual roller coaster, it pulls in and you're like, woof, I
Right.
did it. And you feel good. And it's like, that's the expected outcome. And as a EMDR practitioner, there's something that I learned to listen for, is this sort of like peak emotional experience during the session. And most people do like this big sigh after that. And I'll even point that out to them. And the other thing that I really like about EMDR as a therapist is, I tell my clients, you're going to go to where you need to go, irrespective of where we start. you're going to go to where you need to go. So at the beginning, in EMDR, what they want to talk about is called a target. It's like, well, what's the target? And we'll talk about that for a while, go through establishing, their, emotional safety and all of that. And then we may start at the emotional target, but we could end literally decades away, a continent
Right.
away, whatever, for something that they really need to work on. And I appreciate that because it sort of fast tracks people to like the real thing, not the expected thing. Like if
Is
someone,
I'm sorry. What is the for those that don't know, what is the intended purpose of EMDR?
okay, yeah, let's talk about what this is. So you and I are having like this very important conversation, and someone's actually like, "Yeah, that sounds amazing. I wish I know what
Yeah.
they were talking about." So EMDR is a trauma intervention, a trauma protocol that is developed by theorist Francine Shapiro, and it actually uses a process of shifting our eyes from left to right, as we focus on a particular traumatic experience. It can be done with eye movements. That's what the EM stands for. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it is to desensitize us to this traumatic experience and reprocess it in a way that is no longer stressful for us, hence EMDR. So it can be done with eye movements. Because so many of my clients had traumatic brain injuries, when I did eye movements, I got really good at giving people migraines and headaches. So I use these hand tappers where they just like it. So it can be done sensory. They can hold something in their hands. And when I'm doing it with kiddos, I typically will use like a headphone with a tone going back and forth, and they can watch a movie, a cartoon or something while that's happening. And with kids, it's interesting because we are telling them a story because they don't always have the uh, like they don't always have like the framework to cognitively process it the way an adult does, particularly a small kid. So we'll like tell them the story of the thing that happened and how they're okay and who helped them, and to help them conceptualize that. And EMDR, prolonged exposure, and cognitive behavioral therapy, those are for the VA what they consider to be their gold star trauma treatments. Those are the three, and there are lots of, I'm not saying those are the only ones, but those are the three that the VA recognizes the most as effective trauma treatments.
And what are some of the challenges? What is it that you've run into that has made EMDR difficult for people to do?
Okay. Well, sometimes are they prepared? Sometimes people will come in and they want to work on something and they're not prepared for it. Like their life circumstances aren't prepared, because an EMDR a session can be emotionally intense. And so as a therapist, I'm concerned about what's happening during the session, but also, well, what are they going home to? Is there stability for them at home? That's a very significant thing with EMDR. Another thing that comes up is, can they emotionally regulate themselves so that they can get through the session? Is what they're experiencing so traumatic, or their inability to emotionally regulate, is that going to be so high that we actually have to teach them some emotional regulation skills beforehand? I don't often have issues with EMDR. Like I'll go through
Mhm.
all the therapies that I do. It's been like it's been pretty successful. I've had like a great success rate with it. So I don't very often have a difficulty with EMDR. And one of the things that I really appreciate about it is it does not really require as much discussion of the story as some other therapies do. So that's been particularly helpful. And
I'm sorry, I can speak to the patient side, or like the
okay,
recipient. of EMDR. For me, it was the way that my therapist does it is I have the like the motors in
Yeah.
my hand, in both my hands, and then she has me focus on a specific point in the room, usually straight ahead. And so find something to focus on, and I focus on that, and then she'll be off kind of like close. She'll be close
Mm.
to me,
Right.
and then uh, kind of off to the side, and I look ahead, and for me, some of the challenges, the really uncomfortable part of EMDR that I think is necessary is the I genuinely dislike being asked uh what what is coming up. Like that is the
So,
most uncomfortable question, because that's the thing that I don't want to acknowledge. Like that's the thing that is scary. That's the thing that makes me made me shut it down to begin with. And so, from the perspective of the patient or the recipient of that treatment, I the challenges has been for me to to really believe that I what I'm doing here is necessary. And there's the two voices that go back and forth. Like there's the one that goes, you know, you're supposed to do this, and then there's like the side that wants to protect you that goes, no, don't go there. That's the balance. And then once I experience it, there's the that sigh that you mentioned at the end of that ride, because you like you said, right, like even though you know there's a harness on you, even though
right.
you know that your seatbelt is on, and that logically you know that's you're not going nowhere, you still, when you have those drops like you said on that roller coaster, it does feel like you're gonna fall off. It does feel like you're still gonna come flying off the seat. And so over time you trust that because you go, oh, that wasn't so bad, so I could do it again. And but that was the challenge for me initially, was
Mm.
that fear that I know that I'm safe. I know logically that I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But emotionally it's a different story.
So to preface that, to help with all the therapy that I do, one of the things that I really emphasize is if you survive the trauma, you can survive the therapy. The therapy will never be as challenging as the trauma. Ever. And 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 effectively, when we know the worst part is already behind us,
Mm,
okay, we can go forward a little bit more. So I start with that. You survived the trauma. Whatever
mm,
the trauma is, you're in this office, you are safe. Like you have already gone through the worst of it. And now what we're going to do is continue to help you get better. So when people have that understanding of like, oh, oh yeah, you've already gone over like the peak. This is a
right.
downhill slide towards like, becoming healthier. That's less of a slog for them. The other thing, like the reason I like the roller coaster analogy is like, man, yep, it is so scary, and there are people standing in line to do it. Like, they can't wait to do it. Like, Jesus, this is like we get like all these groups I get like, cyclone or terror or whatever. We make it sound as scary as possible, but people they can do the scary experience when they know that it's safe. So with EMDR, it's safe. And in therapists, we ask like, like what's coming up for you, or what do you notice, or something like that. It is that recognition, and we can go back to it because when I'm doing that, I'll take a note of everything that came up for them. So it's almost like I can build this timeline of like, we were here at this point, and here at this point, and here at this point, and then we can have this discussion about, that has more emotion in it. Man, sounds like you were feeling, maybe you felt, angry or confused, or just something like that. Finding ways to get that emotional component back into the story can be so profound for people. And the point that you made about, prolonged exposure, it when I'm doing prolonged exposure, I will explain, to most people, I'll go like, hey, because again, I like to find something that resonates with people.
Yeah.
You ever been in a hot tub? And almost, if someone's never been in a hot tub, I'm like, man, how are you living your life? So if you like, most people have been in a hot tub at one point and are like, well, how do you get in a hot tub? Like, do you just run and jump right in? That's if you jump right in, you're gonna jump right out. Ask people like, how do you get in a hot tub? And most people go, you kind of ease your way in. It is hot and it's
Right.
uncomfortable and everything. And I go, but after you've been in there for a while, at the point when it's time to get out, do you even want to get out? And most
Mhm.
people are like, no, I don't want to get out. Man, that is such a great understanding of prolonged exposure. We go to this place of intense discomfort and we intentionally stay there until the discomfort is gone. And now it's not uncomfortable anymore. So most people are like,
And you know
oh,
what's interesting, that is also true about getting out, because when you get out, you want to go back in. And so there's comfort now, in more comfort in acknowledging. And I think that that's how people change their habits, is that you go from this being terrified of the heat, but then once you get in and are in there long enough, I don't want to come out anymore. And this is my uh this is where I'm more comfortable now. And I think in some sense that's kind of the goal, isn't it?
it is to get people to a point where the trauma, I tell people like the goal, like I can't change the past. I tell people
Sure.
I can't change a second of your life, but what we can working together change is how you respond to your past. So it no longer is this thing that you can't approach or can't explore. And it doesn't mean that you have to be in the hot tub all the time. I mean, there's probably, no one that stays in a hot tub
Sure.
24/7. If so, are you living your life? But if you are able to go to that point and say, yeah, I can be uncomfortable. I can be I can be comfortable with being uncomfortable for a while
Mm.
and making that safe. Because if we can do that with one incident, and most people have had more than one traumatic incident, if we can do that with one, then we can do that with others. We can get to a point where it becomes safe to explore all of these things. And they're not, again, we can experience the emotions. The emotions aren't harmful. We can experience how negative it was, or how afraid we were, or how confused we were in a manner that does not destabilize us, that allows us to live our lives. Because really, the goal of therapy, I mean, like most people like, they ask, well, like, what is the goal of therapy? The goal of therapy is to be able to live your life in a way that makes sense for you.
Right.
And uh, years ago, I worked with someone, and I want to talk about his story a little bit. And so this is someone, he shared a story, and I'm not going to give like very specifics, but he made it okay for me to like share. But he, I asked him, what is PTSD preventing you from doing? Like what is the impact on your life of PTSD? Like what do you want to do that you can't because of PTSD? And this guy had been uh, comics collector, and he wanted to go to, a big comic movie, and he hadn't gone to a theater in years. And I was like, we're going to the movie.
Yeah.
What? It's like, yeah, we're going, not you're going, we're going to that movie. And so he was super excited in that moment. Like he lit up because this was a thing that he wanted to do, couldn't envision himself doing it. And I'm like, yep, we're going. And I said, today on your way home, like the theater of your choice, I just want you to drive, be in a parking lot for like a couple of minutes. Don't even get out of your car. Like you pick the theater, you drive to the theater, stay there for a couple of minutes, go home. So we worked towards that goal of him driving, being there for a while. Can you get out of the car? Drive there, get out of the car. So we build up to this point, that he is, excited. And I said, well, here's some things that we're going to do. We'll go to a matinee because, in the middle of the week. So it'll be, not, well attended. And the moment you decide to leave at any given point, like you pick the seats, and at any given point, say, we can walk in, sit down, and you just say, nope, we get up and walk out, and it is totally fine. So he didn't feel trapped, and his wife went with us, and so the three of us on a like Tuesday morning, we go like to this movie. The guy that walked out of that theater was transformed.
Yeah.
I mean, he was transformed. He was so excited. He had this experience that he wanted to have, but also he understood that he could have this experience again, that this was now repeatable, and he could go and do like other things. And after that, within a month, I mean, this was a guy that was out going, like his wife, tears in her eyes, was like, oh my God, I have my husband back. So, so it was helpful for him to have an experience really out of my office, not so much in my office, to go out into the real world. So sometimes experiential therapy has a significant impact on people, is to actually go out into the world with them. And therapy, we call it's an in vivo experience, or in life. So we will go sometimes. I've gone to grocery stores and shopping malls and things like that with people, because they're like, there's no way I can do this.
Right.
I think we probably could. And what if I went with you and so to walk and talk with them in this environment where they felt unsafe. And initially, I asked them to rate their anxiety. At the beginning, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's 8, 9. Their hearts are pumping and everything. Really hard. At the end of the experience, hey, rate your anxiety. 2, 3. Anybody in the store care about you? Think you could do this again? Probably.
Right.
Walking around the mall. Anybody in the mall paying attention to you in an undue manner? Nope. Think you could come back someday? Yep. So, and helping people gauge success is a challenge, because the success rate for vet, and you'll probably recognize this, we want 100% success all the time. 100% success.
It's all or nothing.
It is absolute failure, and that is a bit of black and white thinking, and changing that. Like, can it be successful without it being 100% success? And speaking of EMDR, work with someone, and he's like, man, his wife wanted him to go to like a store with her, Walmart, Costco, something like that, and he just couldn't do it. So we did EMDR around that, and he came back a couple of weeks later, and it's like, well, that didn't work. It's like, well, tell me about it. He's like, yeah, I was in the store with her for about an hour, and then, I felt like I had to leave, and so she told me to go sit in the car, and he was almost like, now I want my money back, kind of thing, like work. And I was like, so walk me through this. You hadn't been in the store, you hadn't had this shopping experience for years, 10 years. You're in there for an hour. Help me understand how that's not successful. And it's like, oh, yeah, again. Okay, so it's kind of successful.
Yeah.
Well, it's sort of like our sliding scale of success. And it's like, well, is it a thing you think you could do again? And he goes, yeah, I think so. And it's like, well, while you're in there, did anybody hurt you? Or you're ever in danger? Did you see anything threatening? No, I didn't. So he was off and running after that point. But that all or nothing perfect success thing, that's something that is important that we deconstruct, because that also is not real life.
Right. And also, I think a great topic to end on here today is the conversation we were having earlier, kind of to tie in everything together. We talk about also the challenges of going to therapy, which is that there has to be some level of at least for me, it was, I don't want to live like this anymore. Like I feel like there could be another way, and I'd do anything to find out. Anything else has to be better than this. And that's ultimately, that's for me, what came with the change was that there was a decision that this is not doable anymore. And so all of my mechanisms that I've developed to survive, to get through these unhealthy relationships in family and with myself is no longer tolerable. It is no longer livable, survivable. At least the feeling is that. And so that's what drove for me the change. And so when I first went to therapy, right? Like you mentioned that you've had people that have gone and said, "Yeah, well, you know, I didn't even want to be here. Like I didn't want to come here. Like I thought this was a waste of time. This is a waste of money." And then when there's that change, when there's that eye-opening experience that I personally had as well of like, oh, I see what's going on now, and I feel like I can do something about it, which is something that changed. That's what changed in me is that there was the feeling that there I could do something about it, and it particularly pertains to me, and it's not this thing of um I can't get through it because A, B, and C is going to happen, and it changed the way that I see that, and so we never get, I never thought about I'm going to also have to this is going to end someday too, and I think that that's a really hard pill, at least for me to swallow, and I'm sure for people who have gone to therapy or are in therapy, that's something that is a scary idea, and so why is it that that's the healthy part? That's a healthy part of therapy.
Oh, all right, man. So, like ending the clinical relationship. So, asking someone to end for them what might be one of the safest, most productive, encouraging relationships they've ever had. And that's a challenge to ask. Like, I get a lot of people don't want to end like therapy. And I've talked with people, it's like, well, you met all the goals and you're doing all the things and and it's time to end, and there's a little bit of like, I don't want to. and and I get that. It is because, well, this is a safe, supportive relationship that has built a great rapport. And I tell them the reason that you don't want to end this relationship is like, it feels good and it feels safe.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, I acknowledge that. Like, that makes sense. One of the things that, like, I've had clients say things like, I didn't know that I would laugh this much in therapy,
Right.
and so it has a lot to do with the clinical relationship, and they can build relationships with others. And I said, would it be better to have this like relationship with someone that you could see every day as opposed to 1 hour every other week?
Right.
Isn't that like a better, like, and having someone like, we can build relationships that have like that level of trust. And clinical relationships are intentionally developed to have greater and greater levels of trust. And that's one of the reasons people don't want to end them. It's like, oh, I trust this person. People have said things, man, I told you things I've never told anyone. I appreciate that, but that doesn't mean that they can't tell others. But it is that challenge of developing like deeper relationships. So I think that's what a lot of people can do is, well, how do you develop a trustworthy, deep relationship with family and friends that's on par with the relationship that you develop with your therapist? And part of that is, we got to be honest. You have to be genuine. We have to be authentic. We have to risk telling the thing that we are embarrassed or ashamed about or bad about or whatever, with people that we feel are safe. And if there aren't people that we feel are safe, get people that, developing those relationships with safe people is important. I mean, I think we've all probably had an experience where we just recognize, oh, I'll never tell that person anything about me, just based on
Yeah.
our response to someone else. Well, don't have that relationship with them. You can't have
Right.
that relationship
Right.
with someone that we can have that deeper level of trust with. And that is also ongoing work, particularly, for men right now. Men as a whole are having difficulty with developing safe, healthy relationships that have depth, the type of relationship that is not just about, the game, on Sunday or something else, like surface stuff, but more deeper stuff. That's a challenge, for a lot of people. And it seems, that in our culture that women are encouraged or more predisposed disposed rather to having those type of relationships than the men are. And so learning to have that type of relationship is really important. And for vets, something interesting happens for us is early in our careers, like most of us have been at some point in the barracks or on a deployment or something where we could tell anybody anything. The people
Right.
around, we could tell them quite literally anything. No shame, no regret, no fear, remorse. Something happens to that. Like finding, like, because that's precious. Like that's part of the camaraderie
Yeah.
that means so much. Like that ability to be emotionally safe with people that will quite literally take a bullet or dive on a grenade for us. And something morphs that. And working to get that back is really important.
I think too. So, and I'm saying this from the experience of I'm still relatively new in the veteran space where I've been out now, 21, so almost 5 years actually. Wow, that time flies. The interesting thing about that is I've kind of gone through a couple of phases of that process that you're talking about when kind of veterans lose that, and I I was fortunate enough that having been in the reserves, I these guys are mostly local, so they weren't very far. And even if they were, we were willing to make the 1 hour, 1 hour and a half drive. That's still doable to every now and again gather. But even still, what's interesting about when the fact that we were all really close and we could, and sometimes we did, um, eventually I started to feel the drift happening
Mm,
where people start having kids, they have families, and so we kind of get what's the word? We we all get kind of like we go adrift, and society is kind of like the ocean, like being in the civilian world is kind of like the vast ocean. And so we were all on this ship together that now has split into a bunch of pieces and has taken us adrift in the ocean, which is the civilian world. And so we now have to kind of find our way. There's no structure. Ah, there we go. The structure that was the military that held us together has dissolved
yeah,
effectively once we got out. And so for me, I've gone through these phases of uh trying to reassimilate fully to, all right, well, this is my life now. And the feeling of they have their own life now. I don't want to bother them. Um, and then if sometimes I would call them and be like, hey, what's going on? We should hang out. It's like, I gotta, I have a commitment to, a wedding to go to, my son can't get a babysitter for. And so things like that. And over time, it becomes painful to ask anymore because there's that fear of like, they won't be able to. And so then I know for me, I would justify not reaching out by saying, well, they're busy, because I didn't want to feel like I was bothering anybody. And I think that that's kind of what happens is as you go adrift and you don't have that structure anymore, there's guilt in reaching out. At least there was for me, in that I'm bothering them, in that they're busy, and I should be doing my own stuff now. And there's also shame in that,
yeah.
in that you still want to interact with them even though the structure is gone.
Well, part of the, and so this is one of the things, this is like from my perspective, really kind of like the value of therapy is to explore something like that with someone and go like, man, and like what's even beneath, that I don't want to bother them
Right.
is also this fear of rejection. If
Yes.
I reach out to someone and they don't reach back, that's rejection.
Right.
So we'll say, I don't want to be rejected. Well, that hurts. Well, I don't want to bother them. Everybody's busy. I don't want to bother them. That sounds better. So, so we put that, well, everybody's busy. And true, people are busy. And one of the things that I emphasize is that we make time for what's important for us. And when we value something and understand, well, how to maintain it, well, we have to make time to maintain it. A great way to have a healthy connection with someone is schedule that. And we live in I mean, no one wants to schedule anything. I won't say no one, but a lot of people don't like the idea of like maintaining that schedule and saying like, I'm going to meet with my friends once a month, no matter what. Or I'm going to have this weekly coffee thing, like no matter what, and scheduling other stuff around that. Yep, life is happening for all of us, and sometimes, just like in a real, like sometimes it can't happen, and I think we all understand that. But it is the commitment to it matters. Like
Right.
it is that commitment, and what's interesting in the military is like we have the commitment, but is the commitment to service, is the commitment to our peers. It's not always clear who the commitment's to, but there is commitment. I mean, we'll write it on things and put it on coffee cups and all kinds of stuff. Like there is commitment, but it's not always clear who that commitment is to. And if someone is saying, I'm willing to make commitment to you, and someone else is like, well, I don't know how I feel about making a commitment back,
Right.
there's some rejection in that. So, finding like the people that are willing to make the commitment. And the other thing is even having like this discussion, like being able to say it out loud.
Yeah.
I need people that will make that commitment back to me. I am There are people that I am friends with, and there are people that I am friendly with. And I love that. I heard that Billy Jefferson Fisher's a podcast, but I like that distinction between being friends and being friendly. And with my friends, there is a continually deepening of that connection. And when people that I'm friendly with, that's all surface level stuff. And that's okay, but that's not something I have a whole lot of time for. The bulk of my time is reserved for friends, for the people that are willing to make that deepening level of connection.
And the interesting part of that is that there was a realization of that at some point, and that's the stage I'm in now. The first couple of stages were like I reach back out, and there's the sense that um, there's other things that are more important to them, and there's rejection in that, but also there was the self belief that is one of the oldest things that I've had to deal with, which is that I am a burden. And so um, that is an old wound that resurfaced in those scenarios. And so what I started doing was, this is important to me. I want to gather the guys that want to be there and want to make the time for it. So that's where that whole project started, of doing the annual birthday celebrations for the Marine Corps. And suddenly, when I started to do that and have the events, there was a realization from the group of that, hey, we could make time for this and we haven't. And, these relationships are important. And, and then there's that kind of like commitment that has resurfaced. Because I don't know, I think that it is a mix of things. There's things going on for them too, I'm sure, of why they feel like they shouldn't anymore, or that should be in their past, or not something that they can make time, that maybe they're shamed for making time for in relationships, or that's why for those, I was like, I don't really know what's going on for them. But what I did find is that in me saying, well, I'm going to do it anyway, and whoever comes, comes. And so that for me was me accepting that this is worth doing, and it's something I want to do. And so regardless of who shows up, I'm going to do it. And then the response being that the guys found something that was consistent, and it wasn't something that they knew I was going to do every year. And if they knew that there was trust in that was going to be there, then the commitment came with it. And I think because there's fear in them too of, what if it what if it doesn't work out? What if he says it's going to be there and it's not? And I'm sure there are things going on there. But for me, ultimately, the 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 thing that mattered to me is the only thing I had control over. And
Yeah.
so in doing that, I've been able to um, accept whoever doesn't want to be there, and also acknowledge that this is important, and it's important because it's important to me, and then important because it's important to everybody else, but not the other way around. So that's the stage I'm in now. But those first two stages, I think people get stuck, veterans get stuck in.
Yeah. Well, man, again, a lot to unpack there, and especially as we're wrapping up. But I love the idea of exploring with all of our relationships that the responsibility of the relationship is a shared responsibility. It is
Mm.
not one person's job to maintain a relationship. It is everyone involved in the relationships that is shared. And yep, we are busy, but if we factored out all the doom scrolling and Netflix and video game, and well, yeah, we're busy, but how busy are we really? I
Right.
mean, can we make time? Can we find time for something that we say is important? Because the reality is, we will, in fact, not find time, but make time for things that we say are important. So it is that making the time for it and expressing the value of it. Like, why do we need this? Like,
Right.
we need this to actually be emotionally healthy humans. And, for people that have had a shared experience, there is value in revisiting that shared experience. And it doesn't have to always be about the shared experience. We move forward, but there is value in having someone that gets it the way that you get it. There's
Right.
a real value in that. So, but also recognizing it's not one person's job to make that happen.
Right.
It's now that's like being like one kid on a seesaw by themselves. No, that's not going to work. We need two people in order to make that relationship work. Yeah,
And
I do.
that's a fair point. Yes, and I think that that's worth that is worth acknowledging, or at least thinking about in that regard. So, yeah, lots there we could still talk about, but I think that the beauty of this is that we get to revisit, and we get the conversation is continuous, and there's always an opportunity to continue it. So, um, thank you so much for making time for this conversation,
Yeah.
and for being open with us about the things in life that sometimes people don't think about. And it was nice having the conversation today.
Man, this has been Josh, thank you so much. This has been an amazing opportunity for me. It has helped me explore, spaces that I didn't even know that I would explore, I could explore. It's given me an opportunity to say, oh man, how do I connect and reach with people in a way that maybe I wasn't prepared to do years ago? So
Right.
I enjoyed this immensely, and I've learned a lot from it. And in some capacity, I go forward. I don't know, but thank you. This has been huge for me, and I greatly um, appreciate it and enjoyed this.
I guess we could say there'll be an episode 6.